Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Hello again, everybody, to a special edition of the Juice Box here in episode 99. Can you believe it? We are here for the All In AEW prediction show, the second All In to take place at Wembley Stadium in London. A huge, huge card, 9 matches on the main program and 1 additional on the pre-show. And, you know, I've had Eisenberg on for prediction shows. I've had LeBar on for prediction shows. I've had them both on for prediction shows. I've had Josh Cross and Donnie from Wrestling Nation hop on for Triple Threat Theater. And, of course, we've got Main Event Maniacs with Brian and Jay as they come and go to talk about main events as a new feature on the Juice Box. And outside of the SIP series, you know, that's pretty much all the talent that the Juice Box has brought in thus far. But for this show, AEW All In, London, Wembley Stadium, the second go-around, I decided to bring in a little bit of fresher talent. 2 guys from the famed Wrestling Nation group chat that I reference quite a bit on the Juice Box. They, quite often give me the Ask Juice questions that I love perusing, and, you know, some I can answer and some I will never answer, but that's neither here nor there. But I like to bring these next 2 gentlemen in. I like to refer to them as L squared before we really can gravitate if we want to have a certain name for them. But this is both of their debuts here on the Juice Box. Joining me today, we have Loper and Lucas. Gentlemen, welcome to the Juice Box. First time on. Long-time listener, first time appearing on here. AEW in Wembley. Lucas, Loper, how are you guys doing today? And welcome to the Juice Box, a formal introduction, as it were.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Juice. I love hearing the Juice Box intro live in person. That's something I've never had to experience before, so it's fun change of pace here. So yeah, it's fun, as you just said. We're part of Wrestling Nation, the famed group chat. All started really because, Loper, the other half of our duo here tonight, he's been my buddy since college. I've met Josh Cross. We've been friends actually since we were in like the 3rd grade. We were friends growing up, and there's just the little wrestling background here, I guess, off rip. We've been friends forever. We went out one day. It was in 2021. I could tell you that for sure, because I was a wrestling fan as a kid. Growing up, probably until like middle school, like beginning of high school or so. Kind of got out of it as the typical, I feel like, kind of just growing up as you do. Tuned out of wrestling for a good like 8 to 10 years at least. And we all just went out, like some of my buddies from high school, some of my buddies from college. We were out at the bars, and Josh and Loper were both there, and they were both talking wrestling, of course, because they've known each other for a little while as well. And they were like, dude, you just gotta tune in, start watching AEW. And it's the best time to start watching AEW, because it was right before, really just like it was kind of right at some point, the apex of AEW, if you will, right before the All Out 2021 show, which was just a great show, right before Danielson and Punk, Adam Cole all made their debuts. It was a great pay-per-view as a whole, and kind of really what was sparking a big time, I guess, in AEW. So I started tuning in then. I was like, damn, this is fun to watch. This is why I liked watching wrestling when I was growing up, and kind of stuck with it ever since. Loper and I, we actually both attended WrestleMania. We saw Juice, Eisenberg, Josh there, all the other Wrestling Nation guys, of course. So yeah, I've been in it for the past 3-4 years here now, or been back in it, I should say, and happy to be on the Juice Box for the first time. Hopefully the first of many, right?
Absolutely, Lucas. I really appreciate you being on. And yeah, WrestleMania was a hell of a time. It was when I first actually got to meet both of you. Going back and forth in Wrestling Nation is always fun, but putting a face to the words is always, a little bit sweeter. Loper, put some audio to the background here. You had a legendary weekend in Philadelphia. We don't have to go into great detail there, but welcome to the Juice Box, and let's get a little background on you as a wrestling fan before we dive into this card, shall we?
First and foremost, thank you for having us. And second of all, thank you for not going into too much detail about our WrestleMania weekend. I've been a wrestling fan probably since I was about 6, 7 years old, post Attitude Era. Got in because of family. They showed me wrestling. I was a big fan of Edge at the time, still my favorite wrestler, one of my favorite wrestlers to this day. Been a fan of AEW pretty much since the inception. Got Lucas into wrestling. I think the exact time that we went out was the day before, actually. The Danielson and the Cole debut. I told him this is going to be a great show. There's going to be some guys showing up, and you're going to really like it. Pretty much, I watch a little bit of every wrestling, so I'm ready to talk some wrestling.
Looking forward to it, man. And yeah, both of you guys, welcome into the Juice Box. You guys are welcome any time. We've got quite the card here. We discussed off air before the mics were hot. AEW, they love putting on these big cards, and critique the week-to-week TV as much as you'd like. But damn it, the pay-per-views always deliver. And last year, I felt All In was a phenomenal show. Of course, the CM Punk Samoa Joe opener, a lot of controversy throughout that whole incident, but I thought that match was great, and the whole show was really memorable. So looking forward to this show as well. 9 matches. This show starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. It should be quite the happening. We might add another match or two. Who knows by the time this actually airs. But Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m., let's just dive into this card. I mean, I don't think that they, have really compensated for, they didn't take anything away. I think a lot of these guys and girls that are on this card are well-deserved. I think they're squeezing just about as many as you can on arguably their WrestleMania show. So let's just get right into it. We're going to quickly go over the pre-show match, at least the only pre-show match. It seems that they might have a multiple 0-hour program. So we'll see how many hours they actually put onto that. But the only match thus far announced for that is Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway versus Ishii and Willow Nightingale. This has been a little bit of an interesting story throughout the last couple of weeks, but unfortunately, these guys and girls are on the pre-show, and I really like Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. I'm not sure why Ishii needs to be a part of this necessarily, because Stokely is a manager, but he does have wrestling experience. But I would almost much prefer a one-on-one between Chris and Willow Nightingale, but we're not going to get that, unfortunately. But that's really all I have to say about the opening of this. I really just want to dive into the main card. Do you guys have any thoughts on the pre-show and just the show in general before we dive in?
Yeah, the only sidebar I have to add is if anyone doubted Loper's wrestling fandom before or just from his intro, here, I've never seen that man smile harder in his life. It was the first Dynamite show we attended in Pittsburgh. I think it was 2022. And Ishii wrestled Adam Cole on the opener for the Rampage recording that night. And that man was ecstatic because he has been subscribed to New Japan pretty much his whole life. So that is, I'm sure he echoes your sentiments there, Juice, that Ishii probably deserves a spot higher on the card. But I agree, or maybe either not have him on the card at all or put him higher because he's in sort of like a throwaway spot here. But no, that's the only thing that I have to really add there.
Loper, you got anything?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I do. So I'm actually really looking forward to that match. 2 great women's wrestlers, and then Ishii are all fantastic. And I think they're doing one thing that they're doing with All Out having to be 2 weeks away is they're kind of building towards one of the only 2 announced matches on that, which is Statlander and Nightingale for that CMML championship. So I think that's, trying to let it air out, not put too much focus on the one card. It seems like that's somewhere that they struggled last year because I know that they've only put like a week apart. They're doing an extra week space, but I think they're really going to give them a lot of time when it comes to All Out.
Yeah, man, this is exactly why I have both you fellas on. The insight there and the all out, portion where last year, God, it was a week. Yeah, they turned around, boom, another pay per view. Here's another $50. I paid it. I'm a maniac. That's what I had to do. I had to support AEW, so I had no problem doing that. But I like that they spaced it out, gave it another week to breathe. And yeah, you do make a good point, Loper. If they have this on the pre-show, it will absolutely lead to, what happens at All Out. And I actually forgot to mention this, that the winning team chooses the stipulation of the match between the two, Willow and Chris, at All Out. So there actually are some stakes in the pre-show match. You did mention how they, had a struggle last year with fitting both these shows back-to-back weeks. I like that they spaced it out because plenty of talent on this card. Will Ospreay kind of mentioned that, and we'll get to his match later on, of course, but he definitely kind of took a shot at Tony Khan having, what does he say, 3,000 guys signed back there, which I thought was a kind of a dig because there are so many wrestlers in the locker room. There's somehow more championships than wrestlers, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the main card. A lot of great stuff on here. I don't really know where to start, but we have to start somewhere. So why not start with Chaos? 4-way London ladder match for the AEW World Trios Championships. For those who want to watch Collision tomorrow night and not be spoiled on who's in the match on Saturday, you're going to have to cut this part out, skip ahead about 10 minutes. But we've got the Patriarchy, Christian, Killswitch, Nick Wayne defending their championships against the Bang Bang Gang, House of Black, and Pac with Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta of the BCC. 12 guys, a ton of ladders, a trios championship up for grabs. A couple of questions I have, and Loper, we'll toss it to you after I bring this up real quick. 12 men. Are they going to have all three trios titles up on the hook? Is there a way that some chaos ensues and we get three separate teams grabbing a title apiece? Is there anything like that going to happen here? Otherwise, I like that there's 12 different guys on here. It gets so much talent on the card. I'm happy for the Guns and, of course, Juice Robinson. Couldn't be a pay-per-view without him. I think the Bang Bang Gang was one of the high spots of the early Collision days. So I really feel as if they should stick around with AEW for the long haul. I'm happy they're there. House of Black is always a quality act. The BCC and Pac, I like what they're doing. I have a feeling we're going to lead to Pac getting in a one-on-one at All Out, but I don't know who that'll be against. A lot of rumors flying around in that scope, but 4-way ladder match, I assume a lot of chaos here. I don't know. This is really tough to pick. I like the Patriarchy with the titles. I don't think BCC and Pac take them. I don't think House of Black gets them again. I wouldn't mind seeing the Bang Bang Gang win this match. Loper, what say you? 12 dudes, 3 titles, 1 winner. Who you got?
I think I'm going to have to go with the Patriarchy. There's a lot of talent in this match, like you mentioned, especially with the late inclusion of the Blackpool Combat Club and Pac. Pac has been in desperate need of his Wembley moment, but I do not think he gets it here. I know you mentioned he's looking for like a one-on-one shot coming up. I think he does have a match for the current American Championship at All Out. So that kind of sways me to go against that team. If he didn't have that match, maybe going in with the Trios Championship to All Out might be something a little bit more plausible for me. And then the Bang Bang Gang is just fantastic. The things the Guns have done to turn around the early sentiment of their career in AEW have been fantastic. They're over on the mic. They're over on the ring. The addition of Juice is fantastic. The wild card in the Bang Bang Gang. They're going to have some insane spots in that match. It's just going to be a given. House of Black, a bunch of extremely talented performers. But I'm going to have to go with the Patriarchy.
Sounds like a solid choice. You make some great points. Lucas, a ton of guys in this match. Who's going to take the craziest bump, and who do you have winning this thing?
The craziest bump is definitely Juice is going to get thrown. Not you, Juice, but Juice Robinson is going off the ladder through some tables, I guess. I'd have to guess. I know he just came back from an injury somewhat recently, so maybe not him. But if I had to guess, he seems like the most likely. Him or Nick Wayne, actually. Now that I'm looking at things, I'm going to change that bet to Nick Wayne. But no, as far as the match itself, I echo everything that Loper just said. They put a bunch of really good guys in the ring together. They're going to put a bunch of really guys in the ring together. And I agree, it's going to be just chaos. And I like how you started our conversation on the card with this, because if I had to guess, this would be a great match to open the card. It's going to be a hot crowd. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people there. God only knows what the attendance might be officially, but it's going to be a hot crowd. If that Dynamite crowd on, last night, Wednesday night, whenever you're listening to this, is any indication, it's obviously always a hot crowd in London, in the UK. But if I had to take a guess, I'm going to say it's the House of Black. I just think those are three guys who are talented, who kind of just mull around a lot. They sort of need a purpose, and I liked whenever they had the trios belts, they kind of brought in that House of Black rules stipulation for their matches, made things interesting. I think they would benefit the most from getting a win, though I didn't take into consideration how you introduced this whole segment here, Juice, which could be that you might be able to split those belts up, and I think that would be more interesting than just having one of these teams win. If you have Christian grab one of the belts and say, Malachi Black and whoever, pick your other two from the House of Black, Brody King can grab the other one, who knows, and kind of have to see what happens if Christian works with them, or try to maybe even turn the House of Black. Doesn't have to be them necessarily, but I think that's an interesting dynamic that I didn't even take into consideration prior to us just talking about this right now. But for my money, if I had to pick one team out of those four, I'd say the House of Black has more to benefit from holding those trios belts than any of the other three.
Yeah, to elevate off of what you said to my point, that would be fascinating to see Christian. It would be great, specifically if it is Christian, like him winning the title, but like I have to join the House of Black if I want to defend these. Like, I wonder how they would kind of, bring that forth. Like, how are they going to describe, like, how are they going to give an answer on how this would work? And maybe that's above their pay grade as well. Maybe it's just as simple as there's going to be one team that wins this thing. But here on the Juice Box, we like to extrapolate and expand and have the creative juices flying all around, much like Juice Robinson or Nick Wayne will be doing in this match. So a lot of interesting takes here. Again, chaos, I think, is just the name of the game here. You have an all-in card. This is really their WrestleMania in regards to levity, attendance, that type of thing. I still think Double or Nothing is their WrestleMania because of it being their first real big show. I know All In was their first real big show, but it was under the Ring of Honor banner, and AEW wasn't even technically a thing yet. That wasn't until 2019, so kind of torn on that. But they've made All In this big show. I like seeing the big match on a big show, so we've got a ton of them on this thing. And let's move on to another one. This is an interesting one. We don't have a lot of info for, so we'll just kind of run through what we do know. Casino Gauntlet match for a future AEW World Title match. To catch you guys up to speed, the Casino Gauntlet match is different than a traditional Gauntlet match where the match ends whenever it ends. If one guy starts and the next guy comes out and there's a pinfall or submission, that's it. No other guy can come out and the match is over. Traditionally, in a gauntlet match, it would be one-on-one. Whoever wins that match takes on the next guy, and so on and so forth. But with the Casino Gauntlet match, not only is the match over immediately once a fall has taken place, but the competitors come in at random intervals, and who knows what order and when they're going to come out. So it's a lot of incentive to get the match done quickly. Now, this is for a future AEW World Title match. I did briefly bring up last week on this show that it's tough with the eliminator matches, and you got a World Title match here. You got a guy set for a Grand Slam and Darby Allin with a title match, number one contender matches. There's so many different contenders, and I think it could be a problem to an extent. But for the most part, I like that, you never really know what's going to happen. I hate the parts where you have a huge match coming up. Really, that there's going to be no way the match will change, but the champion has an eliminator. or they have to defend the title. Like, are they really going to lose it beforehand? It's interesting, but with this particular match, I like that. Whoever wins the world title, they got to face Darby Allin at Grand Slam in a couple of weeks after this, and then whoever's the world championship holder has to face, the winner of the Casino Gauntlet. Like, there's always someone in the distance, and I like that aspect of this match. We have 5 people announced and only 1 entry. Orange Cassidy will start the match, but who knows who will finish it. The only other guys in this thing, Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, Hangman Adam Page, and Evil Uno. Without seeing the rest of the roster coming into this match, it's tough to really pick a champion or a winner here to have that championship opportunity. The guy who I think always kind of steps up in these casino matches, he's the wild card. He's the 21. He's done it before. He'll do it again. I don't see why Hangman Adam Page can't be the guy to win this thing unless there's someone we're not discussing that could show up and be a surprise. Lucas, I'm going to start with you. Out of the 5 guys we know are in the match, do you think one of them are actually winning it? And if not, who do you think it is? And are there any surprises we will see in this match?
So I agree with the winner outcome that you said. I don't see out of the advertised guys that we know for a fact are going to be in this match how Hangman isn't the one to walk out as the winner. But I also that's the fun of these kind of styles of matches, right? And that's why I think this is, honest to God, probably one of the best things that AEW has. And I wish that they would kind of use it a little bit more and a little bit better. This is honestly, in my mind, is a bit of a throwaway match to kind of try to, like, obviously it's a big show, get as many people on this card as you can out there in front of all these 50, 60, however many thousand people's eyes as you can. I don't see a way that Hangman doesn't win it. But again, like, I would like to see a way that AEW does this match almost in like a Royal Rumble type fashion or something where you can build a show around. I remember when they did the one, it was at the Daily Place show back towards the beginning of the year, maybe January, February, where Ospreay, no one thought that Ospreay would be in this match on a random Dynamite. He ended up winning it, and that's how he ended up winning the international title, which goes on to obviously further the card for that match discussion in of itself. But I love this style of match. I think this could be the match that no one really necessarily cares about when you look at the card, but could potentially be the match of the night. But I agree. I think Hangman, at least of the people we have advertised, is going to be the winner. As far as surprises, it could be anyone, honestly. I wouldn't put it past Tony Khan. Tony Khan loves to bring in guys from outside promotions or people who you might not think that work or working in or with AEW. I could see someone like that you might not expect. I don't know who that guy might be off the top of my head, but I could see a complete wild card, maybe someone who's decently big in the UK market. I know Filthy Tom Lawler, for instance, was supposed to be on the last All In card, and then I think he had an injury and couldn't make it. So I could see someone like that making an appearance, but ultimately I do agree. I think Hangman takes it.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that with Filthy Tom Lawler. Potentially, with Hangman in the match, Loper, I'm going to pass the buck to you. Is it time? Has he healed? Could Kenny Omega show up in this match and steal one from Hangman Adam Page?
I do not think so. I think I am going to have to agree with both of you guys and go with Hangman to win this match. But I do think we have some chances of some really good surprises. One, not so much of a surprise with the story that they've been building over the last couple weeks, especially with Hangman. I think Jeff Jarrett is pretty much going to be the lock for this match. They're going to have a pretty good spot in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's who Hangman picks up the pin on. A couple other names that come to mind would be Michael Oku with that recent match with MJF on, I believe it was just about a week ago, for the American title. So I think he could be a good shot at making it on, a pretty big name in the British independent scene. And then you got some opportunity and maybe some crossovers from ex-WWE guys. I could see this being a very real possibility for the AEW debut of Ricochet, maybe even a Dijak, some guys who definitely have some big potential in the big name company. I feel like Ricochet has to be a lock to be going to AEW within the next couple months, and I think this is a pretty good way especially a multi-man match. He gets to put over all of his insane moves, his great offense, without having to make him take a pin on his first appearance. Maybe not get that win that's going to push him to the world title scene, but you get a lot out of him. But I really think this is Hangman's to lose, and I think he picks up the win by pinning Jarrett.
Yeah, I think Jeff Jarrett is absolutely someone I'd like to see in this match. Loper, to your point, I do actually believe that it was reported today by Fightful that Ricochet has signed with AEW, but even so, we don't know when that debut is going to take place. I mean, the obvious is Will Ospreay versus Ricochet one more time, if not, as many times as they'd like to do, and we'll see if that comes to fruition down the road as well. But I love your inclusion of potentially Dijak. I've been a Dijak fan for a very long time now. And I feel like in NXT, I think he lived up to what he could have done. But he never really got to get further than that when he got to the main roster. Of course, T-Bar and that whole retribution it just didn't work. And I feel like, he's a hungry guy. I think he could show a lot of people what WWE missed out on. And what better way than to put him in a huge spot like this? And like you said, Ricochet doesn't have to necessarily, like if he would be in this, he doesn't have to take a pin or anything. Like he can be in the match, not win, look great all at the same time. Like all those things can happen. And I think the same could happen with a guy like Dijak. So a lot of interesting stuff there, but go ahead.
Throw it back with Dijak's included.
Yeah.
Depending on the health of another man he has a lot of history with. You got Keith Lee. If they could do a spot during this match, if Keith is healthy enough to be able to do it, and Dijak's contract status, I think that could be another big area for AEW. And I think with the amount of matches that they've put on the card so far, which is a little bit different than the pay-per-views that they've done recently, I think a lot of these matches are going to get time to breathe. They're going to get a lot of time, and they're going to be able to showcase a lot of these superstars.
I tend to agree. And, you said time. Pay-per-view time? Hey, guys! We are going to talk about the next match.
Chris Jericho. I had to unmute myself just to laugh at the hey, guys.
Chris Jericho versus Hook. Last chance match for the FTW title, where if Hook loses, he can never challenge for the FTW title as long as Chris Jericho is champion. I've never really been a fan of the last chance gimmick, if like the stipulation, specifically for if a guy is still champion. Because to me, Jericho could win this match and, okay, Hook's out of a title match. But, I mean, how long is Chris Jericho going to hold on to this? If he holds on to it even for, a month or two? Is the FTW title the only title Hook wants? Like, Hook could go do something else. It just doesn't do as much as if it were, people will complain about this with Cody. But when Cody said, if I don't win the AEW title, I can never challenge for it again, that was for whoever was holding it, and that was a little nutty. That's literally the furthest extreme for this stipulation in particular. But here, I don't know. Big Bill has been the best part of this Chris Jericho learning tree thing, in my opinion. I don't mind it being a feature on TV, TV time, Brian Keith. I like certain pieces of this. But to me, it's just meddling with Hook, and this is all Hook is good for right now. That's all they want to give him. But, I'd like to see Hook get the win here and maybe have Big Bill turn on Jericho, something intriguing. I'm just looking for a story to come out of this, because I can't be the only one that, even if we, tongue-in-cheek like the learning tree, at some point, someone's got to get pushed further than this outside of just Chris Jericho. Loper, what do you think is going to happen here? Does Hook lose vision in his other eye? Does he win the FTW title? Does Big Bill turn because he's a huge babyface to the London crowd? What actually happens here on this match?
As two of the biggest supporters of the learning tree, Lucas and I am sad to say that I am going with Hook in this one. I think that there's, just too much there for have Jericho retain the title again at Wembley. He did a great job of putting someone over last year, and I think he's going to do it again. I think the story coming out of this match, which I don't know if it's going to happen because, there are so many titles on AEW, that I think maybe it could be the retirement of the FTW title, have Hook win it, give it to Taz, give it a formal retirement, and then get Hook up into that TNT title picture that I know we're going to get into later.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up. I would not mind if he retired it, gave it to his father, the guy who created it, and it'd be a creative way to dump a title, a title that really doesn't mean much considering the lineage and how many people have actually held it. I liked it when it first came in as a potential, BMF title for those of you that watch UFC, but it just hasn't done that for me. And I'd much rather, if you're going to have other titles, keep the American Championship or the International plus, whatever else you've got. Like keep certain ones in. But the FTW title, I'd be cool with them, not having. So let's just roll with Lucas. What do you think here? Do you think this is the end of the road for the FTW title? And is there any chance TV time is finally over, as much as you love it?
So I hadn't actually even taken that into consideration. My first note, actually, funny enough, kind of loops back into both of what you guys have just said, is that Hook, this same event last year was the infamous The Real Glass Jack Perry Hook FTW title match, which I believe was on the pre-show, but it was for the FTW title, and here we are a year later, and we have Hook with the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho. But Hook, it's essentially is on the same part of the card, provided this will be on the main card. But it feels like it's time for Hook to kind of take that next step. Though I say that saying it felt like it was Hook's time to take that next step probably 6 months to a year ago. As a sidebar, no, Loper and I both love the Learning Tree. I think the gimmick itself is great. I think it's hilarious how people pretty much just said they were sick of Jericho. He's on TV too much, and he turned that into his gimmick of just being the annoying guy who's on TV too much. I mean, to me, it's funny. Wrestling's supposed to be fun. It's goofy. It's funny. I think it's hilarious. But no, I agree. I think that Hook has to get the win over Jericho. Jericho does it. I mean, having the FTW belt is more or less just the name of it. Kind of centered around this whole Learning Tree gimmick where he said, I'm going to win this belt that doesn't really mean anything to teach the young guys, but it's all sort of tongue in cheek, sarcastically. I think you have Hook win. I don't know if he necessarily retires that belt, but I think it might be time to retire the Learning Tree, as much as it pains me to say that. I think that Jericho would kind of say, what the hell am I doing here? I should be further up on the card, kind of thing. And whether he deserves to be further up on the card, that's up for debate. There's all of the backstage issues, which obviously we're not going to touch upon. But no, I think that Hook wins. And I'd like the Learning Tree to stick around, but if that's it, I also do kind of like, which I didn't mention, but I do like the fact that they said it's Jericho can't challenge for the FTW title again, but I feel like that also opens the road for All Out being 2 weeks later. You don't have to have Jericho rematch Hook, but you can have the Bad Apple Brian Keith or the Big Redwood Big Bill. You could have him almost take their place to pretty much set up an automatic match that you can put on that card too, which I think would probably be the direction they go.
Yeah, you make a good point there. I wouldn't, again, Big Bill, for a guy that was just the heater for Enzo Amore so long ago, I feel like has done a lot more. And with his character and his work, he's done a lot longer, I feel like done a lot better than people would have given him credit for back then. And it's great to see. And I'd love to see him get a shot. Have him go against Jericho at All Out. Let him take a stand. But if I have to pick something, I'd rather just the FTW title be done and move forward with something else. And then, we could still get TV time with Chris Jericho. That's fine. But I don't need FTW title. I don't need there is no stake for this title. Like, if you're the champion, what does that really mean? Like, there's only literally what? Did Joe hold it? No, Joe never held it. Brian Cage, Hook, Jack Perry. Like, it's such a small lineage that it does nothing. It's not too big of a deal.
Ricky Starks had it for a little while too, and
Starks also had it. Future NXT superstar Ricky Starks.
But again, yeah, exactly. It hasn't done anything to like elevate anyone who's actually had it.
Yeah, it's a tough avenue with that whole thing. So
yeah, I think it's hard to get over a 5th male singles title in any promotion.
Yes, exactly. 5 of them? Like, that's ridiculous. So, and again, really not too many stakes to it. It's just a fictional, in a world of fiction that is pro wrestling, a fictional stakes title is tough to sell in 2024. But what's not tough to sell is a triple threat tag team title match with the Young Bucks, FTR, and the Acclaim. Now, FTR and the Young Bucks have had quite the wars throughout the history of AEW thus far. The Acclaimed have had their success in the World Tag Team title picture throughout the last couple of years, including their big win at Grand Slam a couple of years ago. A lot of great moments for all 3 of these teams. But with the new, EVP Young Bucks heel character thing going on, it seems like the tag titles seemingly are a little bit of the background because the Young Bucks, pronouns pal, they are really driving storyline based things for other characters. And, they're doing their own thing, but I feel like the tag titles are a little bit in the background here. But with a triple threat, with these 6 guys, I think this is going to be one hell of a match. I don't see the Acclaimed winning it. I think they're there to get a huge spot. I think the fans are going to be excited to see them there. I have a feeling we're going to see FTR win these tag titles once again. And if so, that's going to start some crumbling in the elite, as it were, because, Okada, who I don't believe is even on this card, maybe he'll be in the Casino Gauntlet match, is a Continental Champion. And, unless he loses it soon too, the Young Bucks are really the stalwarts for having titles in here. Jack Perry, of course, has a coffin match. We'll talk about that later. But if the Young Bucks lose their titles, how are they going to tell the rest of the elite, hey, you guys got to still win because we couldn't hang? Lucas, I'm going to throw it to you first. Triple threat, the Acclaimed, FTR, Young Bucks. Who you got to win this thing?
So this might be our first point of real discontention here. So I think the Acclaimed do win this match, actually. But I agree and I disagree with you at the same time, Juice, because I think the points that you made is that the Bucks are almost swept up into the bigger storyline with the elite, with the fact they've barely defended these belts since they've won them. I don't think there's a ton that they need to have the belts for. There's nothing that they like having gold around their waist obviously elevates them to some extent, but I don't think that it helps them in the sense that it would the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed are kind of playing that weird, a bit of a tweener role, if you will, right now, where they're still faces, I think, but they've kind of been teasing more towards like a heel side of the Acclaim, which we haven't seen, which I would like to see them kind of get into a bit more because they've always been the Acclaimed. Loper and I have talked about them. We're huge Acclaimed fans. I think we both own Acclaimed merch, maybe multiple items. But they've always been the fan favorites, and I've always kind of equated them to being like the New Day of AEW, where they're kind of guys who can't turn heel. But I think it would be interesting to see them kind of win these belts and take them to a place where we haven't seen. And that's sort of a bit of an issue, I guess, with AEW as a whole. When they introduced the trios belts, it's sort of watered down the tag division to a bit because that's one of the stronger divisions they had prior to the trios belts being introduced, I think. But for a match as a whole, I think that FTR, we kind of know what they are. Like FTR are a great tag team, arguably maybe the best tag team in the world. But you put the belts on them, and you kind of know what you get. The Bucks have held them, and again, they haven't really done a ton. I think the Acclaimed have the most to gain by winning the belts, and for that reason, I think they're going to take them at Wembley on Sunday. Almost said Saturday.
Yeah, you make a good point though as well, Lucas, where the trios titles. As a fan of PWG, one of the bigger independent wrestling promotions in the world, if not just the United States, they really had a strong trios division. That was always something that, an independent promotion can pull off. where you got a bunch of talent coming in, you don't have a set roster, you can put a couple of trios matches on a show, you can even have a King of Trios tournament, you could do a lot of different things. But when you bring it to a main company like this and you have all this other talent that ordinarily would be in tag matches, by bringing in a trio, you kind of take away tag teams because you are adding a third person and not allowing two of the three to be in tag matches. Because, for instance, whenever it was the House of Black, I'd almost much rather see a Brody King and Buddy Matthews go after the tag titles and have Malachi Black go for a singles title. Same with the Guns and have Juice Robinson go for a single. It kind of takes away when you force three guys as a trio in a match. So with the Acclaimed as well, I like Billy Gunn. He doesn't need to wrestle, though, necessarily. He's solid in ring even at 60 or 61, however old he is. But I think it suits AEW better just to have a strict tag division with more tag teams and not phase out the trios title, but get more trios competitors in, however that has to be done. Loper, the Acclaimed, FTR, or the Bucks, who do you got in this thing?
Everybody loves the Acclaimed, but not on Sunday. I'm going to make it 3 for 3.
Boo, Loper. Boo, Loper.
I'm going to make it 3 for 3, and I am going to go with the Bucks to retain the titles. Spoiler for a little bit later, but I think the Elite 2.0 is going to walk out with all the titles they walk in with. 6 fantastic wrestlers. I could watch all of them all day. Like Lucas said, we've been huge fans of the Acclaim. I've loved the Bucks since, all their early work and Bullet Club. FTR have been fantastic for the last, decade, everywhere from NXT to the main roster, a little bit of WWE, and then, of course, with AEW. I think the biggest thing here is I think the team that does not get pinned is going to get a rematch with the Young Bucks on All Out. I think that's going to be the big setup from this match, but I'm going to go with the Bucks.
And you know what? Based on, you've really brought in a lot of the points that I maybe neglected or am just too focused on All In to assume. But with All Out in 2 weeks, you make one hell of a point. Let's just assume that the Acclaim take the pin here from the Young Bucks. FTR has a stake saying, hey, we never got pinned. Let's have our match. And why wouldn't you want to have in Chicago FTR versus the Young Bucks one more time, straight up, one-on-one? I think that would be fantastic. So I can't really disagree with your points there. Let's move forward to another title match. This is one of the best stories going here in AEW. Arguably the best women's story that they have ever told. And it's Mariah May taking on timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Title. I don't think Mina's going to be there, but maybe she'll show up and have to pick a side, or she'll pick both. We can only hope for that. But man, Mariah May hitting Toni Storm with her heel and making her bleed at the top of the stage, and just the back and forth, black and white films that they are presenting, and just the work that these two women have done in an organic way to get to this match at a huge show. I love it. I love every second of it. I've said, as soon as Toni Storm started with this timeless gimmick, it's honestly one of the first true gimmicks that AEW has presented that I feel is different and successful. And it's with the women, and they're giving it a shot, and it works. All those things are really, really cool to see in 2024. But that being said, I think she's really, really, got a tough time with Mariah May here. And as much as I'd hate to say it, I'm going to have to pick Mariah May to win this world title. I don't know if that's a shocking decision or not, but I feel like, both these women are, going to be fan favorites. Although Toni Storm being from New Zealand, Mariah May's going to have the hometown crowd there. I think Mariah May takes this. Lucas, what say you?
So I do agree. I think it's been probably the best build for a women's match that AEW has had. And that's to preface what's to come here. We're still with the TBS title match. But I do disagree again, Juice. I think that I just don't see a way that they're going to take the belt from Tony right now. I think this is another one, and that's why this card is so hard to predict, but also so fun to watch because, and it goes back to what you said, I think it was last week, but there is a lot of booking in AEW that feels predictable and feels like you see a match. Even just literally this past Wednesday, Saraya won the belt and main evented, well, she didn't main event, but she was on the card. I don't know why I said main evented. At Wembley last year, she won the women's title belt, and I provided that was a little bit of a feel-good win to make the girl who grew up in London and the UK, and I know she did a lot of indies there, happy. But she essentially jobbed to Toni Storm this week, and it was a title match technically. It was her rematch because she never got a rematch from last year. But I think that this sets up perfectly for Tony somehow does retain. I don't know if Luther might throw a shoe for some interference or something like that to help Tony win, but I think it sets up perfectly for a rematch at All Out. I think Tony retains here, but I do think that Mariah wins it in the next month or two. If it's not at All Out, it's at whatever the show might be after that. I can't even remember because there's too many now. But I say that all to say I am a big Mariah May fan. I want her to win. In my heart of hearts, I would like her to win, so I wouldn't be upset if she did. But I think Toni Storm does retain.
Yeah, and again, this whole show is now turned into, but they also have All Out in a couple of weeks. So what should they do there? And I think you make a great point there. Loper, I'm going to pass the buck to you. This is one of the best storylines AEW has ever done as we approach 5 years of their TV, at least, with a Pittsburgh show in October. But who you got winning this match? And look, you've been right on the money predicting what you think is going to happen at All Out. So what happens at All Out? Do either of these women walk in as champion with a match there, or is it not even on the card at All Out?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this one has something to set itself up for All Out unless they do an immediate rematch. But what's the wrestling Twitter buzzword? Cinema. That is exactly what this storyline has been for the last however many months this has been going on. A pseudo Mickey James, Trish Stratus vibe from WrestleMania 22, where it kind of felt like the Mariah was going to be like the understudy. Didn't feel quite as, stalkery as that was back then. But then with the heel turn, the leaving Tony bloody on the stage, that was, fantastic storytelling. It was a good time to split it up. But I think I'm going to have to go Mariah here. It just seems like the time. Tony's been the champion for such a long time. This one could definitely go either way, but I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, it could be the hometown flavor, although Lucas denies that with Saraya winning last year, and then all of a sudden this year, taking the L quickly as it were, right before the big show. So she's not going to get a moment, but Mariah may get that moment. We have a few more matches on this stacked card. We are going to go to another title match here. We're still talking the Elite. We're talking about the Scapegoat. We're talking about one of the craziest men in AEW, Jack Perry versus Darby Allin, one-on-one coffin match for the AEW TNT title. Darby has had coffin matches before, I believe. Jack Perry, was he involved with the one with Christian? I'm not really sure. You guys can help me out on that whenever I pass it to you guys. But this match kind of started off with a build at Blood and Guts, where Perry is laying on the table. Darby does an insane fall from the top of the cage through the table. Jack Perry gets the headshot with a chair, a la Tommy Dreamer Raven, with handcuffed to the cage. Just a lot
unprotected too, which you never see these days.
Yes, and we don't, we'd rather not, but the chair was quote unquote gimmicked, so I'll have to believe them, whatever. But if Jack Perry doesn't remember this match in 10 years, I'll tell you why. But this feud, it has a little bit to it, but I'm just more fascinated that Darby Allin has a world title match down the line at Grand Slam. Jack Perry is, I've said it before. I said that he had the charisma of a quarter, but I think that he has actually gained a little bit of my respect. He's got a lot of the unprotected chair shot. It may not be the smartest idea, but I respect him for even taking that thing. But definitely there have been more than just that in regards to him being a Raven-esque character. And what I found really interesting, and I love this, is he customized a TNT championship plate with, he made it black, like a blacksmith deal. He painted over it a little bit with some red. It looked very grungy, grimy, dirty, and I love it. I think it's a little bit of an edge for Jack Perry. And with Darby having that world title match down the road, I don't think he needs to be TNT champion. So give me Jack Perry to win this coffin match, and if everybody else is correct, that means the Young Bucks, the Elite could still have all gold once this show is over. Loper, I'm going to go to you. What kind of crazy spot do we see with Darby, and is he just going to do a coffin drop into the coffin while Jack Perry moves, and that's the finish?
I think that might end up just being the finish, but I think a little bit more on top of that. I think Lucas mentioned a little bit earlier. I'm not sure what he was referring to, but I think Darby is going to miss that coffin drop into the coffin full of a little bit of broken glass, and I think that is going to make Darby Allin's coffin match record in AEW 3-1 after his wins against All Ego NXT champion Ethan Page, El Idolo, and Brody King. So turning that record into 3-1, keeping all of the titles with the Elite 2.0. And I think it's they're going to try to get a little bit of online controversy with some broken glass in that match.
I would love that. As you know what, as we're talking about it, Lucas, before I throw it to you, what if there is a all glass coffin that Darby and Jack Perry have right there, and Darby goes through the whole thing? How incredible would that be? Lucas, who you got in this match? Is Darby going to be able to make it to Grand Slam for his world title opportunity?
This is why I love you guys. Your ideas for wrestling go way past the box in my mind, because I wouldn't have even thought about the glass in the coffin, let alone an all glass coffin. I'm a fan. Do it all. Do glass in the all glass coffin for all I care. It was just play into the bit as much as you can, and that's pretty much exactly what the scapegoat, all caps goat, because I've embraced that guy ever since the Tony sent him on his sabbatical walkabout, whatever you might want to consider it, to Japan. Ever since Jack Perry has been back, he has been fantastic. And I was going to bring that up actually, Juice, but you already beat me to the punch. Him just blacksmithing the customized TNT belt out of his backyard. If you're a wrestling fan and you haven't seen that video, please just find it and watch it, because it'll give you some more respect for Jack Perry if you don't have that much to begin with. Because I agree, I had always thought he was the weakest of the quote unquote four pillars. And I always thought that Darby, aside from MJF, was the strongest next one. But that makes me say that Darby, I feel like Darby is almost Teflon in AEW. He's one of the few guys, which goes back to AEW booking as a whole, which we could do a whole nother juice box about. Honest to God, we could talk for hours about that. But he is one of the few guys that I think can just take an L. He's one of the guys that can lose and doesn't really hurt his stock. It doesn't push him down on the card. Losing for Darby Allin doesn't hurt him as much as it does for a lot of the other main event guys, or guys in that circle at least. So I agree with both of you. I think the scapegoat, all caps again, goat, I think he walks out with the belt. I don't agree that the Bucks retain, but I do think that Jack Perry is going to leave hell or high water. He's going to win this match. And like you said, Darby has bigger and better things coming. I think he's probably going to hold the big belt, the world championship belt, sooner than later. So I think there are bigger things for him than the TNT belt. I think it benefits Jack a lot more to hold that. And it will definitely legitimize him by beating Darby. Complete side note, one of those El Idolo, the coffin match, was in Pittsburgh. Sting jumped from the rafters of the Peterson Event Center, 60, however old he was at that point, 62 or 63-year-old Sting, did like a swan dive straight from the second deck at Peterson Event Center. So that was a fun moment of AEW in Pittsburgh.
Speaking of Sting, if you heard the rumors that apparently he's going to be out in London for this weekend, he officially retired, but that doesn't mean that he can't, show up for a coffin match.
I have seen that possibility, and if
Yeah.
there were be a match that he might make an appearance, this would be the one to do it, right?
I think so, and I've always thought that now that Sting is kind of out of the business in a wrestling aspect, he's already been a strong advocate for and mentor for Darby Allin, kind of his big brother, his manager to an extent, if you will. And I've always felt that how fun would it be? The rumors have been swirling, maybe Darby Allin will actually win the world title. Maybe not at Grand Slam. I think that might be too soon, depending on how the main event of this show goes. But let's say Darby wins the match, whenever he gets a world title match, he wins the title and just looks up to the sky, and they cut to Sting, and he was there the whole time for whenever Darby does win. I think that is something that you can really, really take advantage of, even if Sting is not in ring. I think you could benefit from having him on screen. I'd like to see him at All In. Go ahead, Lucas.
I'd rather, yeah, I was going to say I'd rather see him in the rafters at Wembley. I don't know if Wembley even has rafters, but to borrow the patented Josh Cross term, I would mark out, and I know there'd be probably 50 or 60,000 people in that stadium that would do the same, because I know that a lot of UK fans were big TNA fans, because I know that was big in the UK during the time that Sting was there as well. So that would be a huge crowd pleaser too.
Before we get into the final three matches, I'm going to ask both of you guys. Loper, I'll ask you first. Last year, All In London, 80,000, quote unquote. I mean, Will Ospreay got a tattoo of it. It's reported it was kind of like 71, 72,000. It's now reported that they're at like 50,000 tickets distributed. But, what will they really get? Does it really matter? Should they just be happy with 50,000? What are your thoughts on the attendance at this show? Especially with, them announcing All In going to Texas next year. It's tough to go back-to-back years at the same huge building and get the same high number. But now they're going to go to a less sustained building next year. Are they cool with 30,000 next year? Are they cool with 50,000 this year? Are they going to inflate it? What's your thoughts on the whole attendance in AEW?
I mean, I don't know if they're going to be exactly cool with the number, especially with the final number being such a drop off. But that's more of in terms of business. When it comes to, being a professional wrestling fan, it's just amazing to see these kind of stadium shows sell so well, get 50,000 people in the same building to watch professional wrestling. Just like with both nights of WrestleMania for WWE, you get a lot of like-minded people. It's not like a regular sporting event. It's not like football. It's not like baseball, basketball. You're not cheering against anyone. You're there for just, the mutual love of the thing that we're all watching. So, I mean, maybe in the business terms, a little bit of a drop off in numbers here, and then probably inevitably a little bit of a drop off for numbers next year at All In. It's not the greatest for a business term, but man, for professional wrestling, seeing another company in the U.S. sell these kind of stadium shows, I mean, you got to feel good. The wrestling's great. It's the best it's probably been in like my adult life, and it's really awesome to watch.
Lucas, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? I mean, Loper says, they should just be okay with 50,000, but I mean, fans are going to be critical regardless, and shouldn't they not just be happy, but like the whole thing with AEW was you can't sell out 10,000 seats if you're not WWE. And not only did they do that, but they made a company off that principle. So now with like 50,000, it's pretty good. What say you?
No, I 100% agree. And I know we touched on this before we started recording about the official attendance. I bet they probably get in that between 60 and 70,000 will probably be, if I had to place a bet, would be my official attendance range. I don't think it'll be quite as high as last year. Just because, like you said earlier, Juice, it's the same show in the same place again, and but that's the X factor too, right? It's sort of like a wrestling star territory. The UK gets shows. I know the WWE's been making a point to kind of do more shows there, but at the end of the day, there's still not a ton of wrestling for UK, British, even just European as a whole fans. I know last year there were people, you could see just videos of people who are coming to watch All In, and they say, where did you come from? It was like Germany, Switzerland, this and that, people just take trains over. So I think they'll have a good show. I think it'll be great attendance. For me, it's all about the atmosphere, and I agree with Loper. How it's basically, I always say that going to a pro wrestling show is like going to a sporting event where everyone's cheering for the same team. Everyone just wants to have fun. Like if for whatever reason you're listening to this and you've never been to a pro wrestling show, I very much agree that you just need to go to a show. It's the most fun you'll ever have. It's a blast. It's always a good time. And just for instance, like when we were at WrestleMania earlier this year, we met a ton of people who were there in Philly from the UK. We at least like 2 or 3 different groups of people. I still follow this guy. Actually, he posted pictures from Dynamite last night. Who's from UK. I don't know if he's from Wales. I think he might be actually. But they were at Dynamite on Wednesday, just going to shows because it's fun and that's what's around them. So I think that's most important, is just seeing wrestling grow and seeing just the worldwide outreach, where it's like something that we watch domestically, of course, because it's a United States US product, even though there's tons of international talent there. But just seeing a ton of fans there and seeing them having a good time, I wish I could go, honestly. I would love to go.
Yeah, it would be one hell of a trip to go see All In London. But I mean, look, I feel like SummerSlam 2025 could take place in London. I think a future WrestleMania could take place in London. I think a lot of international flavor is going to be doled out even more than it has in the last couple of years. And when this recording is being made, earlier today there was a All In media call with Tony Khan, and he did mention that they're absolutely looking into Australia for, maybe 2025, but just in the future, they're absolutely looking to put something out there in the Australian market for an AEW show, whether that's a pay-per-view or what have you. It remains to be seen. But, with WWE going to Australia and they're going to be in Germany next week, and Cardiff and Wales, and they've been doing all these different things. Scotland, just international wrestling fans don't get what domestic fans here in the United States or even North America get. WrestleMania has had 40 incarnations of that event, and all 40 have taken place in North America, 2 in Canada, the rest in the United States. So whenever that gets out of the United States and Canada, I think it's going to be a massive deal. So Wembley All In, I think, is a nice reimagining of, SummerSlam 92 was in Wembley, and now we can move forward. Let's get some more international shows, bigger and badder. Let's talk about these final 3 matches of this show.
The big ones.
Yeah, these are the big ones. I feel like we've touched on a lot of good stuff already, and yet these 3 matches remain. Let's dive in. TBS title, DMD versus CEO. Britt Baker takes on Mercedes Moné with Camille in her corner for the TBS championship. A lot of acronyms in this match. Speaking of, I was a big fan of Camille back in the NWA days, early pandemic days. I was a huge fan of NWA Power, and Camille was one of the stars of that. She was quiet, but she was imposing. She was a badass, and she's believable. And then she became NWA Women's Champion for over 800 days. I think it's pretty fair to say that she, is a very similar type of pro wrestler to a Jade Cargill, an imposing figure, or, a Chyna, Nia Jax, an imposing figure, but believable. And I think she's great as a heater. But I ask you this, Lucas, one-on-one DMD versus CEO. Mercedes Moné is undefeated thus far in AEW. Is this the moment she loses? And sidebar, to even out the score, could we see the return of Jamie Hayter?
You just stole my thunder there, Juice. That's exactly what I was going to say. I actually just read Camille's Wikipedia page earlier today because I wasn't familiar with her prior to, I think they brought her in at the Blood and Guts show a month or so ago, whenever that was. But no, I thought that for sure she would have been someone who had like an NXT contract, for whatever reason work out in WWE, so she came to AEW. I didn't know much about her. I completely agree. She has the look, she has the feel, like an imposing figure for Mercedes to have in her corner. And I think that is where this is probably leading to, is that I think that Hayter comes back and pops the roof off that place. Everyone will love that. They probably scrap it out on the sidelines. And in the meantime, I think Mercedes gets the pin on Britt. and I think she retains. There hasn't been necessarily like a crowning moment for her thus far in AEW. I know she beat Willow for the TBS title, but she hasn't. They've built her up to be this big character, this big presence, and I don't think that anything she's done thus far has justified that. So I think beating Britt, beating the girl who held the women's title, I believe she still has the record. I could be wrong there, but I think that puts her over more so than anything else she's done thus far, and that's why I think Mercedes retains. But I do think it's with the Camille Hayter comes back, but it's not going to help Britt. I think that Mercedes still keeps the belt, and then that builds for they're going to keep this feud going for a while, basically.
I agree. I'd like to see the feud go a little further, like Loper's brought up plenty of times this far, and potentially even more so in the next 3 matches. All Out's in 2 weeks. You also could see Jamie Hayter return and turn on Britt Baker. I mean, there's plenty of avenues you can take here with the women in this match. Loper, I'm going to go to you. Camille, very imposing. Will Britt Baker have some sort of backup, or will the diesel to Monet's Shawn Michaels be the tipping point in who wins this contest?
Was just going to mention that too. I think Camille has been one of the better heaters for a women's wrestler. Really gets that HBK Diesel vibes for the last 30 years. It really hasn't hit a lot over the course of that amount of time. I think it's doing pretty well so far. I think she's going to be the difference maker here. I think it's Mercedes' match. I think her talking about All In 2023 was the big thing that brought her into AEW. 2024 is going to be her crowning moment on the roster. It's going to solidify her as a powerhouse champion. I think Camille is going to play a pretty big role in the finish. And I think they're going to, maybe after the match to take down Britt. Maybe you get a little return to Jamie Hayter. I think that's what I would be predicting. And then that sets up again for probably about the 4th time, because I need to book wrestling matches a little bit in advance. You get a tag team match for those 4 at All Out. And then maybe that's where you get the heel turn from, either Britt or Hayter, for whichever one's going to be the heel in that rivalry, if they decide to do that. I know there's all that speculation that maybe those two don't work together as well as they used to. But, ignoring that, I think there's some opportunities with that going forward. Hopefully, Jamie's health is good enough to be able to be there. I know that's, huge for her in front of that kind of crowd. But that's, kind of what I'm going with. I think it's Mercedes all the way, but I think we're going to see Hayter on Sunday.
I do want to add as a sidebar there that I agree with Loper, and I think that they've done a great job with just elevating where that TBS title was this time last year. I think that Jade still had it, but this match almost feels just as important, if not more important, than the women's title. So I think that this feud has done a great job for, Mercedes mostly because she's the title, but bringing Britt back into the fold and just letting everyone know that she's still as big a star as she once was.
Absolutely. And, I think you could absolutely see, Loper mentioned it, if Hayter is healthy, which I hope she is, and she can come back for this, I could see it where, Monet gets a sneaky win or by help of Camille, and maybe they beat down Britt and you get the pop of Hayter coming out to help. Sets up a tag match in 2 weeks. Then you get the heel turn and you set Britt and Jamie down a path that they can go on one-on-one. Mercedes can have a new challenger at some point. So I wouldn't mind that at all. I like this. It's interesting. I don't hate it, but having a pay-per-view 2 weeks after, quote, your biggest show is kind of frustrating. But to be able to book this show based off what could happen in 2 weeks, I think is fascinating. So I like that all 3 of us are touching on that. 2 more matches remain here. This one is going to be fascinating. Will Ospreay, MJF, the AEW American Championship. This is going to be a barn burner. MJF got the win against Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door, or no, not at Forbidden Door, but he got the win over. Was it at Forbidden Door? Or was that Blood and Guts? When did was that? Oh no, it was Dynamite 250. That was Dynamite 250.
the opening Iron Man match that was like at the last second. I think it was Dynamite 250.
Yeah, and it happened within like he got the pin and then the time ran out, right?
Yeah, it was at 59 minutes and 58 seconds of Dynamite 250. Yep.
Right. Okay. So MJF gets this huge win over arguably the best overall pound for pound in ring wrestler in the world. And Will Ospreay taking 2 L's back to back, losing to Swerve Strickland, which I thought was a smart move for Swerve going forward. It was a smart move for Will Ospreay to take a loss, knowing that, of course, he can bounce back. He's Will Ospreay. He's kind of like Darby in a sense that he could lose, but I mean, he easily could have won. It's a little bit not as Teflon as Darby because Darby could take a beating and it's believable he always will come back. But Ospreay puts on such a great fight and great match that, of course, he could come back and easily get another shot at it. So these two have been going back and forth. The title is, of course, now the American Championship instead of the International Championship. MJF, it's funny, throughout the course of history in pro wrestling, it was always the Americans were the good guys and those damn foreigners. And it's kind of rough looking back at it like that because it's like so many great wrestlers are not from the United States. So to just throw them away for the sake of a storyline, I feel like it's just like not the best. So I do love that now in 2024, you've got MJF who, arguably one of the biggest heels in the business, is being proud as an American, but he's the douchey, heel, hateable, awful guy that loves America, and it's easy to hate him, and it's easy to hate America if this is the guy representing America. And I feel like, to a wide array of audience members, it's like MJF, if you're an American, you're proud. That's a cliche. You're proud to be an American, but like MJF is the guy. He's the American that's like, God, this is what I don't like about where I live, And it's perfect for the storyline considering they're going to Wembley. Will Ospreay has a chance to win this title in front of these fans and have a huge moment. I think they're going to have a banger match. I think Will Ospreay takes this title and reclaims it the International Championship. Don't know what that means for MJF, but Lucas, I'm going to go to you. Who wins this thing? MJF or Bruv?
I hate to say it, Juice, but I disagree. I think the points that you made about MJF, and those are fantastic about just historically speaking. I go back all the way to like when I was a kid and John Cena versus Muhammad Hassan, when I don't even think that guy was either Muslim or like from the Middle East. I think he was like a Canadian guy, but they made him out to be the bad guy because it was like somewhat recently after 9/11, and it was just America versus everybody type of mentality. You go back to like the Iron Sheik and Hulk Hogan kind of things. But that aside, I think that they've done such a good job with this match. For my money, these are the two best guys in the promotion. I love Swerve, which we're going to get to here soon, but I've always loved MJF. I've talked about Will Ospreay since I started watching wrestling again. I think he's probably the best in-ring performer, if not the best in-ring performer in the world. The guy cannot possibly. He could go out there and wrestle a broom for all I care. I'd be entertained. But I would love to see nothing more than MJF get like the Apollo Creed Rocky IV entrance, living in America, come out with the Uncle Sam hat on, just play it up so much. Like, he can do it. He's just be, like you said, just everything that the rest of the world hates about America. And that's obviously the gimmick was pretty much made for this match, but he does it so well. I thought the promo that they had on Dynamite on Wednesday was fantastic. And that has always been the knock. If there were to be a knock on Will Ospreay, was that he can't hang on the mic. He went toe to toe, and dare I say, he might have been better than MJF. How they went back and forth. MJF, they kind of both broke the fourth wall in a way, because MJF said that Tony Khan called him last year, and you said it earlier, Juice. He said, you have 3,000 guys on that roster, but he still wanted me to wrestle on this show. And MJF said, no, asshole. Like, you were on the show now, and you needed to bring me back because the ratings suck because you were the guy. Like, I loved all of that. I love how they brought real life, kind of the behind the scenes, everything into it. I think this is going to be a great match. I've loved the build, but I think hook or by crook, whether it be Dynamite Diamond Ring, what have you. I think I've picked against pretty much every British person or anyone from the UK, anybody on this card. I think MJF is going to get it done. I think there's more to tell with this American storyline, and I think I don't remember if it was before we started recording, but they kind of built this whole gimmick with the American Championship up, or the American title, whatever they're calling it now. And I think there's just more to explore there. And I think that they can continue to build on this. And again, it goes back to All Out being in 2 weeks. Again, there's Flushing Meadows, whatever they call that. I cannot think of it. Grand Slam, sorry.
Yeah, Grand Slam.
In a few weeks from there. I think that MJF's going to hold that belt at least for another 2 weeks, maybe a month. And I think Ospreay will get it back, but I think they're going to keep this one going. And I think MJF is going to send the UK crowd home a little disappointed, because I don't think Will's going to get it done.
And that's been, the classic WWE, take of, oh, you're going to be in a hometown? You're losing tonight, pal. So we shall see in regards to that. And I also kind of think it's pretty telegraphed that MJF's doing this, in the year of an election. So it's easy to just be very pro-American. Look how great our country is. Even if everybody is laughing at us, he's saying, no. What are you talking about? We're fantastic. This is a great country. Like, it's all working. And I can get on board with him retaining. Diamond Ring, it could be a lot of different things. But with All Out also in 2 weeks, I do wonder what would be next for Ospreay, for one, if he were to lose this match. And then what would be next for MJF, assuming he'd have to wrestle again and defend that championship. Loper, I'm going to go to you. You like this storyline? Who do you think walks out of Wembley Stadium as the American International Champion?
I think it's going to be the International Championship come the end of Sunday. I think MJF has been doing a great job of doing the rounds of the reverse of kind of what we've always seen in the past, of like the beloved American hero, like the hated American prick. He's doing the rounds on like the British interviews for wrestling, wrestling YouTube channels, wrestling media, famous American Civil War denier MJF, which is a fantastic interview that he put on recently. It's 45 minutes of what's in-person stand-up comedy. But I don't think it is his night. I think Ospreay is the way that it's going to go. I believe that he was going to have this big moment at All In. Actually, during Lucas's explanation on what he thought the match was going to go, I looked up some old Wrestling Nation chats from, I think it was the end of last year, which had been at World's End, where I thought the main event was going to be Ospreay versus Swerve, with Ospreay sending the crowd home happy with the world title. But I think while the match is different, the result is going to be the same. Ospreay is going to leave as the champion, reverted back to the international champion. And I think the MJF character definitely still has some legs, but I don't know if he needs the title to be it. I mean, he could obviously do some things, not to get too political, but he could declines. Like, I never lost the title. He could actually bring back the American title that he made.
Yes.
And just be like, I still have this title. This is my title. I deny that result happened. So he could do that, run that storyline for a little bit, maybe go against some other foreign talent, whether it's from England or, the deal with CMML. There's a lot of Japanese wrestlers wrestling for AEW. I mean, there's a lot of legs with being this, hated American heel, which is, something that we don't see that often. And I think the only other match that is officially announced on All Out is Pac taking on the winner of this match.
That's what I was just going to say, yeah.
I think I mentioned it as why I don't think they're going to walk out with the trios title. So, I mean, either way, it's going to be, you can go either direction with that. You can continue the foreign heel bit and, with him going that way, or you just get an absolutely banger match with him and Ospreay.
Exactly. I just want to say a negative there. Go ahead, Lucas.
And I was just going to say as an aside that I didn't touch on, I just think it's also fantastic that the same time last year, MJF was the face of all faces, and he was getting great reactions with the crowd, and he might get the best reaction with the crowd this Sunday, but it's going to be the complete opposite way, where he's getting booed out of the building. So it just goes to show a testament to how good he is as a character and how well he can work a crowd.
And then just that promo from Wednesday night, like, I don't know if it's work or if it's shoot, but you could see maybe a little bit of it crack with MJF getting up in Ospreay's face and being like, they loved me until you got here. It's like, is that true? Is that not? Or, now that he's a heel, Ospreay's the super over face. How much of that is real? How much does he believe it? MJF just makes you believe that everything that he's doing is real.
Yeah, I think it was probably more of, both, blurring the lines. I think it's definitely something MJF could be thinking, like, all of a sudden this other guy comes in and now I have to be a heel again, as if he's not better as a heel than a face. But he was pretty beloved as a face there, and yeah, Ospreay comes in and takes it over. But I think it works better as a storyline of, I was beloved and now he's basically jealous of Will Ospreay. But I think the match is going to be unbelievable. And like you guys said, look, Pac versus Ospreay, Pac versus MJF, sign me up at All Out, whichever is the case. So
he's another guy that could wrestle a broom, and I'd watch that match 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, why not? Exactly.
AEW does a pretty good job making sure that all of their talent can go in the ring. I mean, it's not some people's forte, but man, I could watch about 10 guys on their roster wrestle anybody in the world.
But not just anybody in this final match. Not just any wrestlers. Quote, the best wrestler in the effing world, proclaimed by one Bryan Danielson. It's the final countdown. It could be his final match as a professional wrestler, as he puts his career on the line over 20 years in the business against the AEW World Champion, Swerve Strickland. Look, Swerve Strickland, I said late in 2023, I think, this guy's going to be a world champion very soon. And it happened, right? And as much as it's the constant battle, the struggle with, same with that Cody Rhodes, certain guys, are they better off chasing the championship than they are once they, acquire the championship? And I'd say for a good chunk of time, Swerve was way better off having matches with Hangman, getting close to the championship, but not quite, than he has as champion. However, he got the huge one-on-one victory against Will Ospreay, and I feel like that really helped him out as, a top talent, a world champion. But this is the test of all tests. And regardless of the outcome, I think this is arguably, maybe not even that arguably, Swerve Strickland's biggest match of his career. And it's not just his defending the world title at All In, Wembley, a stadium show, but he's trying to end the career of one of the greatest pro wrestlers of our generation, Bryan Danielson. Career storylines, career stakes in matches. For pro wrestling, for the most part, how many times did Terry Funk retire? How many times did Ric Flair retire? For the most part, it's a wishy-washy type of thing. But with a guy like Bryan Danielson, Bryan already retired from pro wrestling and miraculously came back after, being told by doctors he couldn't wrestle again. And he's had this renaissance. It's his third year in AEW, and he has said he's winding down. And that's fine. I think he's going to be great as a backstage guy. He'll probably go to WWE at some point and go in the Hall of Fame. All the great things and accomplishments and achievements, and I'm sure he's going to be a great backstage guy when it truly is all said and done. But to me, I don't think this is the end. I think the Green Day video package, I think it's all set up for Bryan to win this match, have one final huge moment in the sun, or if the moon's out by then, winning the world title, his first AEW world title, really cementing himself as a legend in this business. He already is, but this would really culminate it, being an AEW world champion, a WWE world champion. I think it'd be huge, and I don't think it's a knock on Swerve. If Danielson wins this, it doesn't hurt Swerve in the slightest. In fact, he could go against Hangman at some point. They can rekindle that. But I think ultimately Danielson wins. I think it's going to be emotional. no matter who wins, I think Swerve's going to piss off Brian with talking to his wife and kid who are going to be there. Loper, I'm going to go to you first, man. This is a huge match. We've seen thousands of career matches, and you never know how they're really going to turn out. But I think Danielson will retire very soon, within a year or two. But I don't think it's after this match. I think he wins and has a great moment. What say you, Loper?
Yeah, I think this is absolutely going to be one of the most emotional matches, of wrestling probably in the last maybe decade or so. It's the potential retirement of one of the biggest stars in wrestling, one of the best technical wrestlers of all time, a beloved wrestler by everybody in the business, all the wrestlers in WWE and AEW. It's like everyone loves the guy. Swerve at 33 years old is absolutely going to continue being a star for the next, 6 to 10 years at least, probably in AEW. If he decides to go anywhere else, he's going to be a star there. The star has been made. But I know we're not swearing too much on the podcast, but Brian is going to kick his fucking head in. This is not the end of Brian Danielson. They're going to do a full retirement tour. I think they're going to do a little bit of the next match I lose for the title is the last match I'm going to do in my career 10 years after WrestleMania 30. I think there's just so much emotion that he's going to go out on top. He's going to have that title. He's going to do the yes chant just the same that he did in New Orleans 10 years ago.
Lucas, it was a miracle on Bourbon Street, but will it be a winning way in Wembley for Bryan Danielson, or is this it and Swerve continues to swerve?
Catch a vibe. I swerve when I drive, baby. Nah. I would love to disagree with you guys for probably the infinite time we've been talking here. But no, I agree, and you guys both said it the best. Bryan Danielson is your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. The guy is maybe the most respected guy in the industry ever. There's nothing backstage, nothing in the ring. I don't know if the guy's ever committed a sin in his life, and if he has, it's never been televised to anyone. He's basically the perfect wrestler, and I don't think that he is appreciated as much as he should be. And I think this is his moment. He doesn't want to win. If it were up to him, he would put Swerve over and Swerve would come out and hit a stomp in a house call and it would be done. But the guy, I think that Tony Khan wouldn't sleep at night if Bryan Danielson retired at the end of the year and he never held that belt. I think this is Danielson's moment, and I have booked this show from the winner picks that I have had all to build up to this moment. Ospreay's not going to win. Mariah May's not going to win, but goddamn it, we're sending the crowd home happy. We're giving Bryan Danielson that belt. I love Swerve. And they, like you said, Juice, they tease it with the Green Day, whatever that song is called, the Fork in the Road song. They've teased his retirement too much for it to be his last match, his last show. And it all builds up to the fact that they have the show in Seattle, in both him and Swerve's hometown, in 3 or 4 months. It makes too much sense for Danielson to win here. It makes too much sense for that to probably be his last match. But no, not in Wembley. It's going to be some night, but it won't be tonight. I give me Bryan Danielson to finally win some gold in AEW.
Yeah, and you brought that up with Wrestle Dream happening, I believe in October, I want to say, in Seattle. Both, Swerve and Danielson. It's October 12th in Tacoma, Washington, at the Tacoma Dome. Both Danielson and Swerve are natives of Washington, and I think whether you run that match back, I don't know what you really do there, but it's absolutely, because look, Darby Allin has a world title match in between then, so who really knows what's going to happen. But Lucas, I think you made a great point where, of course, wrestling is a work, and the titles don't matter, they're a prop, but think of it from a business standpoint. And you said Tony Khan would not be able to sleep if he had Bryan Danielson this whole time, and you didn't get one chance, one photo, one moment, one night, one episode of Dynamite where Bryan Danielson isn't the flag bearer for your company, because that's a huge deal for your company, showing, hey, look at this guy who did amazing things in WWE, and he chose to come to our company, and he also won the world title, and it was a huge deal for us. it solidifies Danielson as a legend, but it proves that AEW is worth it to some guys, to these legends. They want to come here. They want to prove they still have it. They want to show there's other wrestling out there. AEW claims, where the best wrestle, and Ospreay's on this card, Pac's on this card, Bryan Danielson, among others, are on this card. And I think you close the show like, hey, Mariah May could not win, and Ospreay might not win. But damn, if Danielson walks out of this thing with the entire crowd singing the final countdown by Europe, I think it would be one hell of a way to close out the show. And it's kind of like a retirement moment without him having to close it down. You get a huge celebration with everybody, his fans, his family's there, and then you progress forward and you get – it's a little bit of a precursor to the John Cena retirement of 2025, where he's not going to have a title, at least to start out, which leaves intrigue. Like, will he win the Rumble? Will he win the Chamber? Will he even win the title and have the record of 17? Danielson has a shot right now. Instead of retiring, he can be the champion and have one final title run before he hangs it up. And I really think it would be special if he could pull that off. But, this show, 9 matches as of this recording, seems like it'll be fun. Seems like it'll be deep with great wrestling, chaos with the ladder match, multi-person matches, a lot of great content here. I love the 1 p.m. for the East Coast. I'm a big fan of these shows. So I think this has been a hell of an episode of the Juice Box. Lucas, Loper, I'm really glad you guys have both had the inkling to be on and put forth that you guys wanted to be on for an AEW show. And I felt, hey, this is, biggest AEW show of the year. So why not? And before we head on out, Lucas, give me your final thoughts on AEW All In from Wembley before we head on out of here.
No, I just appreciate you having us on, Juice. Hope to come on again, obviously. Loper and I are always ready for some AEW talk or wrestling talk in general. We're always game. Hope everybody enjoys the episode. And again, just honored that you finally decided to have us on, and hope there's many more to come. Appreciate the time and appreciate all the hard work you put into the podcast. It doesn't go unrecognized, at least from our standpoint.
Appreciate that, man. You guys are welcome on any time. It's been great so far. And yeah, with the AEW Insight, I feel like it's easy to I like talking about wrestling every single week just by myself. That's why I started the show. But anytime I don't have to, I can drive this ship, but I love having the guys on the ship with me, driving it alongside me for a lot of these big shows. Loper, final thoughts on AEW All In. Huge show, 9 matches, a lot of history could be made. What are your thoughts on this big one?
Absolutely. Again, just like Lucas said, thank you so much for having us on. We appreciate it. Long-time listeners, first-time contributors. But I think it's just the celebration of wrestling. It's kind of like the WrestleMania of AEW. I mean, it might not be exactly the same. They have other shows that are the original or the first thing that they've done. But it's the stadium show. It's huge. They're going to give all of these incredible wrestlers as much time as possible. And I don't think I'm going to be able to take my eyes off it. Everything that's going to happen on Sunday is going to be a match of the night contender, which puts that at match of the year contender. It's a can't miss wrestling show. And man, everybody who listens to this loves wrestling, and it's good to love wrestling with people who also love wrestling.
And everyone loves the Acclaim.
That is true. I could not have said it better myself, fellas. I've said this before. I'll say it again, and I will continue to put the flag in the ground for. This is a show for the fans, by a fan, and I was very blessed to have you two fans that I'd like to call friends. Wrestling Nation has got me talking to people that, I never even knew you guys. And then talking back and forth with Wrestling Nation has really been nice to kind of gauge interest. You guys input on the podcast, then I got to meet you guys. So it's been nice to bring you guys into the fold and finally get you on for an AEW show. And damn it, we have had a great time. It's gone very long, but I think very informative. And I don't think there was not a stone unturned for this show. So Looking forward to this show, man. Again, 1 p.m. I love these shows that are early in the afternoon on the East Coast. We have so many they used to be Sunday nights, but I'm a big fan of the Saturday night show. But Sunday afternoon, man, sign me up. So looking forward to it. Hope you guys out there check out All In this weekend. Of course, Bash in Berlin following week. We'll have a prediction show for that, and then a prediction show for All Out the following week. But for Loper, for Lucas, L Squared, and yours truly, I am Juice Springsteen. And we'll see you guys next week for another edition of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.